Moving on to section 7.4, we're doing the same thing. We're finding confidence intervals. This time we have a proportion instead of a mean. Photocop survey. The Star Tribune, a Minneapolis-St. Paul newspaper, sponsored a poll designed to reveal opinions about photocop, which is a camera positioned to catch drivers who run red lights. It takes a picture of the license plate of cars passing through red lights, and those car owners are later mailed traffic violations. Pollsters surveyed 829 Minnesotans and found that 51% were opposed to photocop legislation. So we want to find basically part B, find the 95% confidence interval estimate of the population proportion P. We're trying to find the 95% confidence interval of all Minnesotans and how they feel about photocop. So we have to verify a couple of things to be able to use the Z statistic, that N times probability of success is greater than 15, and N times the probability of failure is greater than 15. So we have 829 times 0.51 for NP, and we have 829 times 0.49 for N, whoops, not P again. It's not, there we go. Now I erased the whole thing. Okay, this is NP, this is N, NQ, work with me here. And you'll find that both of those satisfy the requirements. They are both greater than 15. Okay, so moving on, we know that our margin, I need to take a step back, you guys. So the alpha is 0.05 because we got a 95% confidence interval. We know it's two-tailed, so we need to go alpha over 2, 0.025. And our Z statistic, our critical value, alpha over 2, is 1.96. So for margin of error, we are going to take our critical value times the square root of P, probability of success, times Q, probability of failure, divided by N, which is 829. And I get a margin of error of 0.03403. Our confidence interval will be the proportion plus or minus E. And what you get, we've got 0.51 plus 0.034. We've got 0.51 minus 0.034. We get an interval of 0.476, 0.544. So we are 95% confident that the true proportion of drivers who are against or opposed to photocop is between 0.476 and 0.544, or 47.6% of the population to 54.4% of the population. Now, calculator. We are going to go stat. There we go. Stat. Test. 1 proportion. 1 proportion Z interval. We've got X N, whoops, 829. Confidence level is 0.95. Where did I get the 423? What it wants, it didn't have us enter the proportion. It did not have us enter in 0.51. In your calculator, when it asks for X, it wants to know the number of people opposed. So I know that some number over 829 gave 51% were opposed. I just need to solve for X. And that's where I got 423. I'm going to go down and calculate. And there's our confidence interval, 0.476 to 0.544.